How are all you lovely people doing today? My name is John. Welcome to another wonderful, great episode of the Zombie Storyline Q&A. Today's episode is going to be a rapid fire episode. So here's how this works. Rather than me take 2 or 3 questions and really answer them in depth, what I'm going to do is take several of your questions and answer them as quickly as possible so that we can get as many of you into the episode as possible. If you want, you can leave your questions down below or tweeting me at JohnnyJ25. If you tweet me, it's probably the best way to get in touch with me. Without further ado though, let's get rolling. So the first question comes from Christopher Herrera, who said, "Who made the Cel3? P.S. I really like your vids, keep up the good work." Thanks, man. So I get this question a lot. In fact, when I first started seeing the question pop up, I thought it was a little bit too silly. I thought it was a little bit obvious. However, this question keeps popping up multiple times in my comments, so clearly it's not exactly such an obvious question. The Cel3 was most likely made by Atlas. We don't really know for sure. It's never been actually stated Atlas made the Cel3, but if we think about it, we're in an Atlas facility using their 3D printer, so it's going to be their weapons within the 3D printer. In addition to that, this is a direct energy shotgun. Atlas is the one who created the direct energy shotguns, so if anybody is going to make a direct energy shotgun within an Atlas facility, well then it has to be a weapon created by Atlas. And I would go as far to say that every special weapon or wonder weapon we see within the Exo Zombie storyline will probably be made by Atlas. The second question comes from RichGames27, who asks, "Who are the US soldiers you can play as in Noctera, Toten, and Verrückt in World at War?" So the Noctera and Toten soldiers aren't exactly very important. These are silent, unnamed Marines we have yet to see outside of Noctera and Toten. They really don't matter to the storyline at all. When they created Noctera and Toten, they were just trying to create a finished game. A story was the last thing on their mind because they barely had time to even make the game, and it almost got canceled multiple times. So these characters do not matter at all. However, the Verrückt characters have a little bit of significance. 3 of the Marines are unnamed and never heard of outside of Noctera and Toten. We can assume they died. Except there is one very special Marine within the bunch, Tank Dempsey. He survived the Verrückt mission and ended up being captured by Edward Richthofen. And if you don't know, these 4 Marines actually went into Verrückt in an effort to rescue a US soldier spying on Group 935 known as Peter McCain. 3 of the soldiers died. Tank Dempsey was captured by Richthofen. The third question comes from Damon Brody, who asks, "Why do the Nova Crawlers only come when the power is turned on in Kino?" So we don't exactly know why the Nova Crawlers don't come out until the power is turned on. However, I would suspect that these Nova Crawlers are almost in a state of suspension. They're maybe asleep. They're not really doing anything, and then once the power turns on, they hear the noise, they can sense the electricity flowing throughout the entire theater, and this sort of awakes them, and then they start sort of crawling out of the rafters. That's at least my theory. We don't really know, it doesn't really matter, but that's just what I would speculate. The next question comes from GNC Game Night Community, who asks, "What do the electric chairs mean in Mob of the Dead?" So the Mob of the Dead electric chairs hold a little bit of significance to the characters. They were originally executed in the electric chairs. This is how they went from the real world, the physical world that we all know, into limbo. So as they are going through this cycle, every time they want to restart the cycle on their own, they want to actually make the physical decision to kill themselves and begin anew, they have to go into the electric chairs. They have to go into the devices that created the limbo originally. In addition to that, these electric chairs are what can allow them to escape. Once they have gained revenge on the Weasel, they are executed in the electric chairs again. So the electric chairs almost act as a gateway into the next realm. It could be a gateway that takes them to the limbo, and then it could be a gateway that takes them to the next realm, hell. Moving on, we have a question from Tommy Barrios, who asks, "Why would Atlas aid the 4 characters with orbital care packages?" So this is a little bit of a tricky question. Of course, I don't really have a definite answer for you, but I would suspect that the care packages aren't actually directly coming from Atlas. Sure, these are Atlas care packages, but I would imagine the people watching down on you through satellites don't have direct control over the care packages. I don't think they're the ones specifically sending you these rewards because they want you to die. They're just watching, waiting for you to die, and then once you die, they're going to bring you in for further testing. It wouldn't really make much sense for them to aid you in your survival, so I suspect they don't exactly have direct control over the care packages in the same way that they didn't have direct control over the Warbird. Now, if you don't know what I'm talking about, you can actually see last week's episode. I'll link that down in the description. It could be, though, that they actually are sending you these care packages, and then what it may be is one, to test out the camouflage to see how well it works so that they could try implementing it with their soldiers, or just to try out see which weapons are effective against the zombies so that when they actually have to face the horde and try to take out all the zombies, they can do it effectively themselves. The next question comes from Alex Corona, who says, John, in the end they say bring him in for further testing. Why does she want to do that even though the zombie outbreak might happen? So, of course there is the risk of there being a zombie outbreak. Atlas wants to keep this under wraps, and the more they really tamper with these zombies, the more likely it is they'll have another outbreak. But they do need to do testing. They have to figure out what went wrong, what is causing these people to be zombified, and is there even a cure? There's a lot of speculation, a lot of questions, and a lot of unknown going on with these zombies. And Atlas, one, needs to get a return on their investment, as it's been referenced multiple times, and two, has to figure out what's going on. They need to find a way to stop this before the public finds out. Atlas is a corporation that certainly would not want the PR nightmare of there being a zombie apocalypse, so they need to do some testing. They need to figure out what is up. The final question comes from Gabe Boyce, who asks, hey John, do you think the acid gat is element 115, or is it in a different universe from element 115? I know it's a short question, but I never really thought about it. So, the universe doesn't really matter, sort of say. Element 115 exists in all these universes, and the acid within the acid gat is probably the main ingredient within the gun. There may be some element 115 in there, but the real effect, the real power is coming from this acid, the same acid that we saw in the gas chamber trap. So that is really what's going on with this weapon. When you run it into the Pack-a-Punch, you are infusing some element 115 in it, which will give the gun a little bit of power, but I don't think it is powered by element 115 in the same sense that something like the Thunder Gun or the Wunderwaffe is powered with element 115. At the end of the day, though, it doesn't really matter. It's a powerful weapon, and does it really make much of a difference at the end of the day whether or not element 115 is the key component of the weapon? So that's about it for this week's episode of the Zombie Storyline Q&A. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to give it a like, and hey, maybe even subscribe. I upload a couple of these every week, and if you enjoyed this one, I'm sure you'll love the next one. If you want, you can leave questions down below, or tweet me with your question at JohnnyJ25. I'm always checking my Twitter, so it's the best way to get in touch with me. Anyway, I'm gonna go. Have a wonderful day, and bye.